Hold up. Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step. I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets. Cause we know who we at, we know we top tier. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here, ain't stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future, but see profit here. Wait up, we gon' always win. Hello, I can't take no loss. My team hold no L's, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself.
Welcome back. Welcome back, kids. It is a brand new year, 2026. Here we go. Will it be more tumultuous, unsure, chaotic, divisive? Or will we heal a little bit? Will things turn around a little bit? Should we even be looking forward to the midterms? Will our elections actually be free and fair and secure? Will we have them? If we do, and they are, will we see a stemming of this tide? A pushback, our white blood cells winning a little bit, fighting against this virus. What will it look like? Will we start to heal, literally heal from this virus? I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here for all of it. I'm going to be here in part because of your generosity and the contributions we received over the break. Thank you so much. Those of you who have contributed to the show, and those of you who have not, please keep watching. Please, please. This is not a statement on you at all. Just enjoy. But for those of you who have donated, you are as much responsible for what goes on here and the clear eyes with which we ingest this stuff and the details and the nuances and the crevices and the cracks getting exposed. You're as much responsible as Scott or I. And we thank you so much. We thank you so much. BrettBreaksThings.com. So I vow, in light of your generosity and what has been comment after comment, we need more time, we need more time, we need more time. I vow to you that I will be giving you as much show as I possibly can. We will be going longer, more often, trying to reach a goal of a longer show in general. And I just thank you for being here through all of it. Too bad we had an uneventful New Year's, right? Not much going on. Not much going on, right? Pretty uneventful. Nah, we thought this was going to happen Thanksgiving. We went on the air here with Scotty, and we saw how things were developing, and we said, uh-oh, it's going to be boots on the ground. It's going to be boots on the ground in this Thanksgiving break. That's what we thought. We were wrong about that. Things held off for just a little bit, but built. The pressure built. The blockade. You know what? We're going to get into a timeline. I'm going to get into a quick timeline of how we got here. But Maduro has been arrested. Arrested. Not deposed. Right? Regime change wasn't our main goal. It was arresting a narco-terrorist. And that is what they did. They arrested Maduro. That is what they are telling you. They are telling you this is not war. They are telling you this is a law enforcement action. They have to tell you that. We will do just what we do. We will explore the darker places, the crevices, and the cracks of this story. And we're specifically going to hit on stuff that is not being exposed enough in the media. The details matter. The details matter. As you've got Venezuelans in this country here, applauding, cheering, hitting the streets. You've got different reactions in Venezuela itself. MAGA, thrilled. And MAGA cannot understand how, us extreme leftist zealots, how we can't be excited about Maduro being arrested. Here's the difference between you and us, MAGA. We can hold two thoughts in our head at the same time. My audience can do that. My audience and the left can recognize that Maduro was an illegitimate, oppressive dictator. At the same time, the way he was removed from his country violated multiple international laws and is an act of war and should never have happened. And there were stops along the way. There were chances for America to get this right. And they blew right past him. Hit sixth gear, blew right past him. We can hold those thoughts in our head at the same time, Mega. I am absolutely thrilled in a vacuum that a man who has been responsible for the oppression of an entire country, deaths, exiles, torture, I am glad that this man is no longer going to be running Venezuela. I'm glad he has a chance to face punishment. I'm glad. That part makes me happy. U.S. imperialism, violating UN charters, violating international law, that makes me a little less excited. Go figure. We used to be America. We used to be the country that held other countries responsible for things like this. And yes, I know what Reagan and Ollie North did. And I know what our government has done in the past, especially concerning Central America and South America. And again, we can hold these two thoughts in our head at the same time. While America should never be involved in regime change anywhere for their own personal gain, they should also, as they had in the past, been peacemakers. And when peace fails, the country that holds dictator regimes to account. That's how we used to be looked at. That's what we used to do. We used to bring judgment upon countries who did things like this. But now we are the country who just blatantly out in the open, not, some back rooms contra deal or some, CIA-led, counterinsurgent, hearts and minds, effort to peel away a dictator's, support and money and generalissimos before ultimately removing him from power either by a bullet or, hog tying him and whatever it may be, maybe their own people, whatever we set up. It used to be clandestine in the shadows because we knew how wrong it was. We'd try to cover our tracks. Not now. Not anymore. And every single South American leader, dictator, legitimate, illegitimate, ties to drug trafficking, or currently on a crusade to stem the flow of drugs through your country, whoever you may be, you are on notice. You are on notice. And our president, he will lean on the Monroe Doctrine, but of course it's not called the Monroe Doctrine anymore. Listen to this jackass.
Potentially in league with the cartels operating along our border. All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries. And not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines. And the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Donroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our...
Well, although he sounds like a complete a-hole saying the Donroe Doctrine, I mean, the ego on this creature is unfathomable. I mean, just unreal to even... But this goes right along with our foreign policy that has been announced by this administration, a little bit of a middle finger to Europe, handle your own problems. Meanwhile, anything in the Western Hemisphere, that's our problem and our opportunity. The Monroe Doctrines, no, it's the Monroe Doctrine, not the Donroe or the Monroe Doctrines. He ran out of steam so quickly in these press conferences. Now, Scotty, he said, Brett, to be fair, the dude had been up all night watching a military operation. Okay, fine. But you're supposed to be built for this moment. He just was so limp. It just landed with a flop. He looked like he was swaying, doing the eye thing again. He just cannot stay awake. The come down from Adderall, I've heard, is devastating. All right. How do we get here? I'm going to talk quickly. Justice Department in 2020 indicts Maduro on narco-trafficking charges. In July 2024, Maduro wins an election in his country that was independent monitors, the international community said it was absolutely marred with election fraud. And everybody except the Maduro regime agrees that Edmundo Gonzalez had won that election. And I mean everybody, including the Biden administration. Just before Trump took office for his second term, the Biden administration themselves recognized that Mr. Gonzalez had won that election. In July, the Trump administration steps up their game. They add the Cartel de los Solos as a Venezuelan-based criminal organization and say Mr. Maduro is its leader. All right? The Pentagon begins dispatching warships, fighter jets, thousands of troops to the Caribbean. Pam Bondi steps it up even another notch. $50 million reward on Maduro's head. September 2nd, you know the deal. The strikes begin, the boat strikes. Now on October 8th, there was a chance to stem this. There was a chance to stop this, slow it down, make Trump think for just a second. Let the international community and Congress catch their breath, figure out what exactly we're doing, legally speaking. But no, the Republicans in the Senate, they reject a resolution to bar Trump from military action on these boats or in Venezuela. The Senate Republicans blew right past it. Nope, rejected the resolution. They wanted no part of standing in this Trump regime's way of getting what they want. Not on this scale. Not here. Not this time. Do what you want, Trump. This is the effect. This is the effect of MAGA republicanism. This is the effect of a cult of personality. I got in an argument with a friendly over the weekend. He's saying this isn't Trump's fault. Trump's not the genius here. This is Republicans' fault. They need to hold him accountable. I said that ship sailed quite a while ago when Trump enthralled this country with the cult of personality and populism to a level that we've never seen. This began when the vote started to switch, when Trump started to endorse Republicans, Trump Republicans, and they started to win and win and win more, and now they've got the House and the Senate. The ship that this man was arguing about, it has sailed. There is no holding these Republicans accountable. They are bought and paid for. They are paid for. Just go right past that. You know who these Republicans are. We already know who they were. This part, I just want to pose you a question, MAGA, before we hit the break. I want to pose you a question. You see, Trump said at a news conference on October 23rd that he would not seek congressional approval for military strikes against drug cartels. He said, quote, "I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war." Quote, "I think we're going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country, okay?" Let me pose you this question, MAGA. Let me start with this question by giving you a little factoid. Methamphetamines and fentanyl is actually produced, not only is it produced in China and Mexico and some places in South America and Europe, meth and fentanyl is produced in the United States. Now, the United States is mainly a buyer of illegal drugs. We're a major buyer on the global scale, but we are an exporter as well. Check me out, look it up, do whatever fact checking you have to do. Check it out. Mainly, we send meth and fentanyl to Canada. I'm just curious, MAGA, how would you feel if at any point during his presidency, or his prime ministership, Justin Trudeau had said, you know what? Meth is killing entirely too many Canadians. And our law apparatus, well, they may have evidence that some key players in the Trump administration are facilitating this sales, looking the other way, taking a cut, whatever. We've got evidence. What evidence? Don't worry about that. We're going to capture these people that are the heads of your government, and we're going to have them stand trial in a Canadian court, and we'll present our evidence then. We'll allow both legal teams, defense and prosecution, time to mount their cases, and then in a year or two, we'll give you our evidence versus your political leaders and the heads of state in your country after we go ahead and capture them. Would that be okay with you, MAGA? You comfortable with that? Because that's exactly what Trump just did. It's exactly what the Trump administration just did. We've indicted Mr. Maduro. Never mind that he's the leader, illegitimate leader of a sovereign nation. Never mind that. We got an indictment. And we're going to perform a law enforcement action to apprehend this narco-terrorist. And then we're going to bring him back to the States, and we're going to have him stand trial. And you'll get your pesky little evidence then. You good with that, MAGA? That's how America does things now? Mr. No More Foreign Wars at all? Mr. Jockeying for the Peace Prize every chance he gets? You good with any of this?
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts, no fluff.
So, as the timeline continues, I want to stop here at November 28th, just real quick, because this right now, New York Times reporting, pokes holes in one of their few lies. They have a few lies connected to what went down. There's a few lies floating around there. Most of what they're doing is a middle finger to the international community, the UN, our sense of decency, as far as, just deposing sovereign leaders. But there's a few middle fingers, in terms of the truth as well. One, on November 28th, the New York Times reported that Mr. Trump and Mr. Maduro had spoken during that week. And in that phone call, Rubio was on it, they discussed a lot of things, including Maduro coming and visiting Trump at the White House. I submit. Now, this is going to fly in the face of what they've told us. But I submit there was more than just two options. They're saying there was two options. What the administration's saying, sources familiar with the matter, they're saying there was two options. Maduro either leaves peacefully or leaves by force. But there was another option. Trump had said it himself. I mean, he put the kibosh on it pretty quickly, but he had said it himself, and there was New York Times reporting about these meetings that they had on the phone. There was an option where Maduro stays in power. This illegitimate drug cartel leader, there was an option that he could have stayed in power if he had played ball sufficiently enough. Now, that option did dissipate. How do we know it dissipated? Because on November 29th, right after that phone call, there had been discussions of him coming by and visiting, and basically, what would you offer us if we decided to let you stay? Well, it didn't go great, because on November 29th, the day after, Trump went to social media and said airspace above Venezuela should be considered closed entirely. Trump, with absolutely no authority over Venezuelan airspace, decides you can't fly over there. But he was basically talking to American Airlines, American-based companies, airlines. Don't do it. Basically. December 10th, sanction that first oil tanker. You know how it goes from here. Blockade on the 16th. And here we go. Here we are. Here we are. How did this happen? I like to get the details. I've been searching, yearning for details on how exactly this played out. Hasn't really been talked about in the press much. They're just kind of going from A to C. We decided we were going to strike. Now he's in our custody. How did this play out? I'll go fairly quickly here as well. I've got a lot to get to. I'll go fairly quickly, but the planning for this began months ago. Months ago, Special Forces soldiers began training on a replica of Maduro's mansion, his home. I believe that planning was a result of pressure that Trump was feeling. Now, it's true that the Trump administration, even before they had officially taken their second term, had informed Maduro that they were exploring options about unseating him. They kind of told him, hey, get ready. We got plans. That's true. But we, here on Brett Breaks Things, we did a story a couple days, the 28th, before we went on the break, and we talked about the Cuban-American lawmakers and the pressure that the Cuban-American lawmakers were putting on Mr. Trump. They wanted no more support for the Maduro regime. They hated Maduro. They hate dictators. Go figure. And they were threatening to withhold their votes from the One Big Beautiful Bill if Trump extended Mike Wirth and Chevron's, Mike Wirth being the CEO of Chevron, Chevron's license to drill oil in Venezuela. They wanted that license to not be extended. So Trump got pressure from the Cuban-American lawmakers. Trump then received pressure from Mike Wirth himself. Several visits to the White House, trying to convince Trump that China was your big threat, and I am your only savior from China in Venezuela. Without me, China gets all that oil, and we just can't compete on a global level with them. And China itself exerting pressure. And we will get to what kind of pressure China itself had exerted, maybe inadvertently, but they had a hand in this. So Trump was receiving a lot of pressure, so this began. The CIA began laying the groundwork in Venezuela. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, they kept hounding and haranguing President Trump to do something. Rubio had been hell-bent on regime change in Venezuela for quite a while now. So it happened. After Trump threatened, theorized that this might happen, said some things in the media leading up, it finally happened. U.S. Special Forces and FBI agents skimmed 100 feet above sea level, above the ocean, streaking for Caracas. Okay, drones, fighter jets, bombers. They took off from 20 separate bases in the area. Okay. As the choppers moved in on Maduro's compound, aircraft overhead took out strategic targets, air defense systems, power plants, cut all the power in the area, blew up positioning, defensive positioning after defensive positioning. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? And the choppers closed in. They reached the target area, lowered, boots hit the ground. Now, this extraction force was being led real time by intelligence operatives and colleagues on the ground and in the area and in the air as they closed in on Maduro. The people on the boots on the ground were being directed by multiple sources of intelligence in the area. They moved in. Now, all of this was being watched on a live feed from Donnie in Mar-a-Lago, not Washington or a ready room or a war room or anything official like that. No. He had a little party at Mar-a-Lago. And Raisin Kane, Dan Kane, Rubio, Hegseth, and CIA Director John Ratcliffe. They were all there with him, okay? And the president, he was just so excited to talk about this. He said the arriving U.S. force faced a lot of gunfire, but managed to breach the opposition and enter the compound. And Trump claimed that Maduro and his wife tried to flee. They tried to flee to this safe room. The safe room has this thick steel door, but we had already accounted for that. And it was estimated that it would only take us 47 seconds to breach that steel compound door. Wasn't necessary. They got them before they got there, okay? Additional helicopters, they came in. The exfiltration began. They flew out. There was multiple engagements on their way out. A lot of fire and death, but not on the American side. Some of our boys were hit, but none killed. The Venezuelan casualties, they're estimated around 80. 80 is the estimated Venezuelan casualties. And it's funny because Trump advisors told Axios plan A was that Maduro stepped down. They had suggested Turkey as a place. They'd even suggested you might want to go to Turkey. Plan B was Maduro gets taken out by force. But I'm telling you right now, there was another plan A. That is, we negotiate with this illegal, illegitimate drug dealer. We negotiate with him. If he becomes U.S. friendly enough, cuts all his ties with China, gives us free and full access to all of those crucial natural resources in their country, gold, oil, lithium, and others, then maybe he can stay. Make no mistake, MAGA, as you applaud this, one of the options was this government becomes a little bit more friendly with an illegitimate dictator. It was an option. Trump said he was in negotiations. They even had plans for him to come to the White House. It fell through. Sorry, Maduro. And I suspect a lot of that predicated on China. Don't forget, China built their phone lines, built their internet lines, data centers. China is responsible for almost the entire electronic infrastructure in Venezuela. They are dug in. Eliminating China from the equation in Venezuela was never a starter, never an option. So here we are. Maduro is where he is. He is where he is, which is in custody, U.S. custody. Okay? Now, Trump said we're running the country. Trump said we're running the country. And right now, Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro's vice president, is the one we're talking with. That's the one that's been chosen to facilitate U.S. interests in Venezuela. But there were some comments Rodriguez said right after the attack, like she declared that Maduro remained the legitimate president and Venezuela would be nobody's slave and nobody's colony. Pretty strong comments after you had already spoken with the Trump administration and signaled your complicity. Why? Why talk out of both sides of your mouth like that? Scott had a fun theory, and I'm glad we had a discussion about it. And we're going to get just to that why. Why Delcy when we come back.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
We talked about a drug caliphate in our backyard. You know, we had Venezuela, we have Cuba, we have Colombia in our backyard. And these three countries have been condemned ever since I've been in politics.
Yeah. That's Lindsay. Drug caliphate in our backyard. Right? And those comments lead to something Trump said after the attack. Because make no mistake, the U.S. military has not gone anywhere. Don't forget, this is a two-pronged thing. Yeah, we get Maduro out. We get a possibly more friendly, oil company-friendly leader in Delcy Rodriguez in. But they've been telling us the whole time that this is all predicated on cartels. So that's why Trump says, hey, we're still in the area ready to strike. We may have to get those pesky cartel remnants out of that country. You never know. And we didn't just eliminate a cartel's influence here in the country or in the Caribbean just with this one oustering of Maduro. Oh, no. Those boat strikes, they have to continue. They're going to continue. Even though Susie Wiles let the cat out of the bag, we've been told this entire time that all of this is predicated on the cartel's influence on America, killing of American citizens with overdoses, transporting dangerous fentanyl all over the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. That's what they've been telling us. Even though Susie Wiles told us this is to put the screws to Maduro, the boat strikes are to pressure Maduro, that is not the narrative they're telling us. And so here's Lindsey Graham talking about the caliphates. The caliphates. And Trump. Let me tell you something. I said what I say. South America, you're on notice. Not just South America.
Think of that. And now we're going to stop them by land, too. The land is easy. We had to do the sea before we did the land because it just works out.
Yeah, you were just talking about the land, but it sounded like
And by the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico, and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it. But unfortunately, the cartels are very strong in Mexico.
I remember one time you actually, speaking of Mexico, I asked you about Claudia Sheinbaum, and you told me at one point you had offered to send U.S. troops into Mexico to combat drug trafficking there. Is that something you have spoken to her about?
I think she's a terrific person. I would say every single time I talk to her, I offered to send troops.
And she's just not willing?
She's concerned. She's a little afraid. The cartels are running Mexico. Whether you like it or not, it's not nice to say, but the cartels are running Mexico.
The cartels are running Mexico. They're not being really cooperative. Uh-oh, Mexico. Now, I reported from the New York Times, reading from the New York Times, excellent report from the New York Times. I reported here on this show that Mexico was on the menu. Early in the Trump second term, Stephen Miller wanted Mexico. He wanted forces in Mexico. He wanted to go into Mexico and blow up fentanyl labs. He wanted to conduct land strikes on these non-state combatants that are roaming around Mexico. And Mexico said, please don't do that. Instead, why don't you use us as a base of operations? Send all of your troops through here. And by the way, we are totally on board with your ouster of Maduro. You got our support. Please don't do anything to us, please. Completely complicit to anything that goes on in South America. Mexico has done everything they can to avoid the wrath of the United States, and it looks like it won't be enough. It won't be enough. And you know who else is in the crosshairs? Cuba. You see, there were 80 people killed in these strikes, but it wasn't all Venezuelans. Cuba, in a rare move, and I say rare because they came out and all but publicly acknowledged that they had a major hand in the direction of the Venezuelan government. They came out and pretty much confirmed the closeness of these two governments that we had all suspected, that the U.S. intelligence officials had suspected all along. They came out after the strike and confirmed that 32 Cuban citizens had been killed in the U.S. attack in Venezuela. Why? Well, the casualties were personnel from the country's armed forces or its interior ministry who were on mission requests from Venezuela. Quote, our compatriots fulfilled their duty with dignity and heroism and fell after fierce resistance in direct combat against the attackers or as a result of the bombings. That is what Mr. Diaz-Canel, the President Miguel Diaz-Canel of Cuba said. Admitting to the whole world, by the way, we have had a very healthy influence on the direction of the Venezuelan government. You see, for years, Cuba has been exchanging its top military minds and intelligence and economic professionals, intelligence, to Venezuela, exchanging these people to Venezuela for oil. Their experts, military and economic experts, have been going to Venezuela in exchange for Venezuelan oil to Cuba. This has been going on for a while. Teachers, doctors, intelligence agents, security, big-time security. The type of security that was so effective and experienced and deadly that many of that security force were the ones protecting Maduro at the time of the attack. And that is what spurred this statement from their president. And indeed, it was many Cuban security officials and intelligence and officers, enforcers that were around Maduro when he went down, and they went down with him. They tried to protect him, and they were killed by U.S. forces. Cuba, you are on the menu.
The go-to, and you were just talking about Cuba and what could come next there. Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight?
I have.
They go down for the count. And Cuba looks like it's going down. What do you think, Howard?
It's going down. They've lived off of Venezuela, right? The economics were all Venezuelan, right? That's why you said the protective force of Maduro was Cuban, right? They were Cuban guards. So they were just paying Cuba when that money stopped.
Don't hire them in the future.
Yeah, they weren't very good.
People from our country who were forced to come over, they really didn't want, they were from Cuba. People from different countries like to stay in those countries, whatever, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And people want to go back to Cuba, and they want to work in Cuba, but Cuba's going down for the count. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yikes. Lindsay, do you have anything to say on this Cuban matter?
Could have done it. And as to this commander-in-chief, he did something people talked about doing. You just wait for Cuba. Cuba is a communist dictatorship that's killed priests and nuns. They've preyed on their own people. Their days are numbered. We're going to wake up one day, I hope in 26, in our backyard, we're going to have allies in these countries doing business with America, not narco-terrorist dictators killing Americans. This is a big frigging day. And everybody in the world is thinking differently than they were just a few days ago because of what you did.
You're on the menu, Cuba. You're on the menu. Colombia, you may be on the menu. Who else? Who else? It's the Don Road Doctrine, baby. You know, I mentioned, by the way, pressure from China. Well, it wasn't just Cubans there in Caracas when the U.S. struck and removed Maduro. It wasn't just Cubans there. You see, there was a delegation of Chinese officials in the area as well. And man, there's a couple of things you can point to when you want to discuss the timing. Why right here, right now? You've been planning this for months. You've been threatening it for a few months. Your forces have been ready. The CIA has been doing its work. Why now? Why right now? What was the impetus? Why right now? Well, you may be able to look at this Chinese delegation that was in Caracas. You see, just 6.5 hours before this strike, there was a delegation of Chinese officials. It was Beijing's special envoys for Latin America and Caribbean affairs. The leader of these delegates was a Qui Ji, okay? And he, Qui Ji, met with Maduro to talk about the United States. And after the meeting, Maduro shared a message on his Telegram. He lauded the meeting with Qui, reaffirmed the, quote, strong bonds of brotherhood and friendship between China and Venezuela, a relationship that stands the test of time. And that was accompanied with a video of Qui walking with his team with Maduro hand in hand. A big propaganda video followed that telegram message. Well, the Chinese officials that were there in Caracas when the strike happened said they were, quote, I was completely shocked, said one of those delegates, speaking anonymously, of course. You think China's going to be like, yeah, go talk to the American media about this. Come on. But to Washington Post's credit, they got a hold of one of them. And one of those Chinese delegates said, we were completely shocked. Chinese Foreign Ministry had a statement right after that. They said such hegemonic acts of the U.S. seriously violate international law and Venezuela's sovereignty and threatens peace and security in Latin America. Harumph. Very strong words out of China. Words. Very strong words out of China. That's all it is right now. Talking. And that is what Qui and Maduro did. They talked. They talked about roughly 600 separate political and economic agreements between these two countries, including addressing the rising U.S. threat of military intervention. They wanted to talk a lot about oil tankers that are headed for China. And what can we do about this U.S. blockade and the sanctioning? What can we do about this? What can we do about the rising U.S. military threat? That's what they talked about 6.5 hours before the U.S. struck and removed Maduro. When I mention pressure by China, I don't just mean the looming threat of Chinese oil companies coming in and replacing Chevron and American interests. I mean Chinese officials coming in and meeting with Maduro to make a plan, hash out a plan of attack to stem U.S. aggression. That is the pressure I'm referring to. Do you think it is a coincidence? Do you think it's a coincidence after they have this meeting, 6 hours after those Chinese delegates clear the building, U.S. takes them out? Because I do not think it's a coincidence. I don't at all. Now, Maduro and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, they met in May. And Xi at the time said, The relationship between their two countries was, quote, an all-weather strategic partnership. Well, gee, you better break out your life jackets. You better break out your life jackets because this partnership is about to hit a tidal wave. You say it's all weather? Right now, you're just responding with talk. Let's see how all weather your relationship with Venezuela is now. Russia has not just been pleading to China. I'm sorry. Venezuela has not just been pleading to China for help. Venezuela for months has called on Russia and Iran to provide weapons and military intelligence and any other assistance to help them fight the rising tide of American aggression. They have been all but begging to be officially inducted into the club called the Axis of Evil. I know that's a little inflammatory on China, but what am I supposed to do? You align yourselves with Russia. You align yourselves with Iran. What am I supposed to do? Now you've got a dictator, Maduro, saying, please, please, please let me in the club. And you entertain the notion. You take their sanctioned oil. You profit billions off of Venezuela's sanctioned oil all year long. For years you've been doing this. Why don't you just let them in the club?
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
Here, you take down the source of the problem. President Trump didn't wake up one day and say, hey, let's take Venezuela. He did what other people talked about, but didn't have the balls or the guts to do it. This is a good thing. This is not interventionism. This is making America safer. We're going to be more prosperous because of the business deals. There are going to be Americans alive today because he shut down a narco-terrorist state called Venezuela. This is a good thing, not a bad thing.
And the oil companies are going to go in and rebuild their system. They're going to spend billions of dollars, and they're going to take the oil out of the ground, and we're taking back what they stole. Remember, they stole our property. It was the greatest theft in the history of America. Nobody has ever stolen our property like they have. They took our oil away from us. They took the infrastructure away, and all that infrastructure is rotted and decayed. And the oil companies are going to go in and rebuild it. We're not going to spend very much money at all, if anything. But the oil companies are going to go, we're going to take our oil back. But we're going to also do things that, when you look at what he did, the drugs are terrible, but also terrible. He sent hundreds of thousands of people into our country that should not be here. And that means from prisons. That means Tren de Aragua, the gang, yes. Tren de Aragua, that comes out of Maduro's country. He was very friendly with that gang. Well, they're having a hard time right now. You know, we had Tren de Aragua all over Washington, D.C., and they got the hell beat out of them.
Yeah, Trump covered a lot there. Lindsay, yes. Yeah, Lindsay. Lindsay. Remember, I mean, obviously Lindsay drunk there. Lindsay drunk a lot. Remember when Lindsay came drunk to the podium after J6 and said, I'm out. I'm out. Well, he wasn't out, because he has been absolutely in lockstep with this president during his second term. I mean, lockstep. He is the first senator to a microphone to defend anything this president does. He is not out. He is very much in. He's very much in. And Trump is pushing the lie that they stole our oil. They did not steal our oil. For years and years and years, we had a very American-friendly deal worked out with Venezuela and their prior leaders. We would set up these little oil towns and pump their oil, and we had an agreement on how much Venezuela would profit from it and how much we would profit from it. And then Chavez took over, and he drastically adjusted those deals. Very drastically. So drastically in Venezuela's favor that Chevron was the last man standing. And Chevron decided to take it on the chin for even their dramatically less oil profits coming out of Venezuela. And that continued to this day. Chevron was successfully and legally taking oil from Venezuela and selling it. They never stole our oil. He's simply lying, but that's a nice, tight talking point for Joe Bob to go to the water cooler. Hey, they stole our oil. We want our oil back. That's easy. Nice and easy. They stole our oil. Enough said. Boom. America. Nice and simple, although it's just a bald-faced lie. Bald-faced lie. So let's talk about, and we will definitely get into who's in charge now, why Delcy Rodriguez, like I teased. I can't wait to get into that. But let's talk about real quick, while we're talking about what happened, is it legal? Is it legal? This needs to be talked about a lot more, from a lot more outlets, period. Is this legal? Did they have the authority to capture Maduro? Now, Rubio said it would have been impossible to inform U.S. lawmakers about this operation. And we didn't need to, because this was a law enforcement operation. It was not a military action. So we didn't have to inform them of jack. Just know that the UN Security Council will convene an emergency meeting to discuss this attack. Don't forget, Venezuela is a UN country. Okay, let's not forget that. Trump administration officials plan to brief leaders in Congress whenever they get around to it. And Democrats are pissed. Democrats are pissed, and we'll hear from them. But was this legal? You know I love getting into this. Just so we're clear. Just so we're clear. Okay? The UN Charter states that force cannot be used against the territorial integrity or political independence of any other state, Article 2-4. Period. To do what we did for the UN to deem what we did is legal and not in violation of their charter, we would have either had to have UN Security Council authorization. Of course, we didn't seek that. This would have to be a valid self-defense measure after an armed attack, which did not happen, or a legal and legitimate head of state in Venezuela would have had to invite U.S. forces to come handle this problem that we just can't take care of ourselves. Well, that certainly didn't happen. In the UN's eyes, this is a clear violation. What can they do about it? Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. They condemn a lot of stuff all the time, and not much happens. Not much happens. Will our standing in the UN be damaged? Optically, and in the opinion of other member countries? Absolutely. Effectively? No. No, this will not affect. We're on the Permanent Council. This will not affect anything. I'm just here to tell you. Don't expect anything to come from that. How about the ICJ? Right? We talked about the ICJ a little bit, the International Court of Justice. Well, according to ICJ, this is absolutely illegal. So UN, illegal. ICJ, illegal. You see, sitting heads of state, no matter how legitimate you think they are immune from prosecution of foreign countries' law. You remember Lethal Weapon 2? I love Lethal Weapon 2, big part of my childhood. You remember the end, they're standing on that tank or that boat in the harbor, and that older South African diplomat who had caused all the chaos and caused all the murders and the trouble and the drug dealing. He was on that boat, and Mel's got his gun out and he's pointing it at him. And he says, "You're not going to shoot me. Diplomatic immunity." And then, of course, Mel Gibson shoots him. Remember that? That's what we're talking about. Not just the sitting heads of state, but official foreign, diplomats. There is a whole list of the levels down that have immunity from U.S. prosecution. Diplomatic immunity. It's a thing. The ICJ certainly thinks it's a thing. It's their thing. Can they hold us responsible? No, not really. Not really. But in the case against Maduro and his wife Celia, I believe that their lawyers will motion to dismiss on this diplomatic immunity. There's going to be a few motions to dismiss, and we will get to the case as well. We're going to get to all of it. But I believe this will be one of the main points of a motion to dismiss this case. It won't work. It won't work, and I'll tell you why. Because our government is going to tell Maduro's lawyers and the ICJ he's not the leader of Venezuela. Mr. Edmundo Gonzalez is the leader of Venezuela, as per a legal count of their votes in their 2024 election. You see, Maduro was never actually the leader of Venezuela, is what they will argue, and they will be successful in arguing. I promise you. That's no big prognostication there. They will be successful. They will be successful, okay? As far as the ICC, don't look there. It's actually legal for in the laws of the ICC, the International Criminal Court, the ICC. If it can be proven that Maduro has committed these crimes as leader of a state, he can be arrested. That's how they feel about it. Not that it makes any difference, but that's their Article 27. So was this illegal? Of course it was. Everything he does is illegal. No big surprise there. You say, Brett, what about the case? You mentioned the case, Brett. Okay, the case. This will be in the Southern District of New York. Okay, the presiding judge is a guy named Alvin K. Hellerstein. Maduro and his wife they're gonna enter pleas of not guilty, of course. They will not be granted bond. They will be detained. They will be detained right there. Okay, and it could be well over a year before we even get to the evidence part of this trial. And like I said, Maduro and his wife will try to challenge the legality of him being removed and sent to the United States. And they will talk about diplomatic immunity. They will talk about that, okay? Now, at the hearing today, it's the hearing today, Monday, they will summarize the evidence. They'll talk about recordings, documents, other materials seized in the searches. There will be, pushback from their lawyers, who we know now will be Barry Pollock will be representing Maduro and his wife. Barry Pollock. Jay Clayton will be leading the prosecution out of the U.S. Southern District of New York, along with the National Security and International Narcotics Unit and the DEA. They will all be leading this case. The Southern District of New York, by the way, they handle terrorist cases, mafia figures, corrupt politicians, and the Metropolitan Detention Center, where he is to be held and detained at while they gather their evidence in their case. Well, auspicious company like Luigi Mangione, ladies, huh? Ladies, Luigi Mangione's there right now. And El Mayo Zambada, the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, is there right now. And ironically, this is where Juan Orlando Hernandez was before Trump pardoned him. You know, that corrupt drug-dealing leader of Honduras who was responsible for about 400 tons of cocaine to come into the United States that Trump pardoned. Remember that guy? Oh, he already pled not guilty? Thank you, Scotty. He said, quote, I am innocent, I am not guilty. Okay, so that part's, boom. I said they were going to plead not guilty, they pled not guilty. Oh, MAGA, please come and explain to me how it's okay that we remove Maduro, the president of Venezuela, on drug charges, and then pardon Juan Orlando Hernandez, who is proven, convicted, and sentenced for moving 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. Tell me how this is okay. Tell me how it's okay that Mr. No More Wars, Mr. Jockeying for a Nobel Peace Prize, feels it's okay to apprehend Maduro in his palace while letting Juan Orlando Hernandez walk away from proven charges. Please tell me how that's okay. I'll wait. I mean, the gymnastics you have to do to get around that have got to be spectacular. Spectacular. This Judge Hellerstein, he's 92 years old, appointed to the bench by Bill Clinton, old fuddy-duddy. And he's going to be the one who's going to oversee this case. And it will be appointment television. Oh, we're coming. Oh, this is the fourth day. We are coming back. I told you we're coming back. We're going long.
It's time for a quick break. Then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett Breaks Things. Fighting for America, one mic drop at a time.
As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country.
He was fading. It's all about the oil. It's all about the oil. It's not just about the oil, though. That's what he's telling you. It's all about the oil. Yes, by the way, at the very end of that, he says we're going to make a lot of money. Yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. We will make more money. We absolutely will make more money. With more licenses being granted to U.S. oil companies, with much more favorable percentages of the profit, we will make more money. Well, the oil companies will. You won't. You won't. We will see, undoubtedly, a drop in oil prices, a drop in gas prices, if we get our hands on the largest reserve. Just our playground. And a leader in Venezuela who will allow us to do whatever we want. Okay? Yes, undoubtedly, we will see a benefit in terms of the oil production, our percentage of it, and the effect on the American people. He's right about that. He is right about that. Never mind that it was completely illegal, an intrusion on sovereign land, just wildly hypocritical. When you look at his pardoning of Juan Orlando Hernandez, just so much wrong with it. Not only legally, but morally. You know, the destruction, the killings, the explosions, the boats, the people that died that night. Speaking of people that died, you know our president is a freaking sociopath, right? Many of my audience has been around for presidents making statements after our government has killed people. And there is a certain respectable tone that has always been taken when we are forced to take lives. Legitimately, illegitimately, whatever. When we take lives abroad, there's a certain solemn, lower key, respectable, detail-less tone about these strikes. What does our sociopathic leader say when we take a bunch of lives overseas? Quote, "It was an incredible thing to see. If you would have seen it happen, I watched it literally like I was watching a television show. And if you would have seen the speed, the violence, it was an amazing thing, an amazing job these people did." Could you imagine Obama saying that? How stupid and ridiculous that would sound? How viciously the right would attack such statements out of Obama? Could you imagine if Bush Jr. had said any of that in terms of the war on Al-Qaeda? The war on Al-Qaeda and all the lives that we took against the war on terror, which I'm not saying we shouldn't have, whatever. Just speaking of him addressing the country after taking these lives. Could you imagine? He's a total sociopath, and something like this is so down the list of egregious things he does and says. That's where we are. The bar has been lowered so incredibly far. He's a sociopath. The only thing he feels is slights to his ego. Those are the only emotions that get through to him, is when his ego has been bruised, when he has been personally embarrassed. That's the only thing that registers with this man. That's it. And, there's been the Democrats, of course, are saying things. I'm not going to say all. We're going to get to reaction tomorrow. We're going to let the reaction fester a little bit and come out and build a little bit. But Chuck Schumer, he said, "Let me be clear. Nicolás Maduro is an illegitimate dictator, but launching military action without congressional authorization and without a credible plan for what comes next is reckless. A credible plan for what comes next." What comes next? Let's get into that. Now, Maduro, by the way, I mentioned that China's meeting with Venezuela could have been an impetus for this attack, and I stand by that. Would you like to see another influence of this attack? The timing of it? It was going to happen, but we're talking about right now? Well, once Maduro started rejecting Trump's Plan A or Plan B ultimatum, leave willingly, go run to Turkey, or be taken out in handcuffs, after he ultimately rejected this, he started going on television and he started dancing everywhere. He liked to dance, and he said things contrary to, what would be beneficial to his regime, staying where it is, and the well-being of the Venezuelan people. Contrary to all the things that might have been prudent to do at this time, he decided to go out and dance. Dance, dance, dance. And Trump is the only world leader that will ridiculously dance with impunity. Not this guy. You want to see the dancing? You want to see what really set Trump off? Some officials said this was the tipping point. Up and down, up and down, up and down. He's got his own. Now, you got to admit, those are better moves than Donnie's got. Donnie's just got the I'm standing between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin on my knees. He's got the right? Not much to it. Maduro, man, he's got the legs moving. He's got multiple moves. He had the up and down. He had the side to side. Multiple moves. I could see why Trump would be pissed about that. I could see. That makes sense to me. That was the last dance move he was going to do. The Trump administration decided that was Maduro calling their bluff. We aren't getting the respect we deserve. Look at him dancing, thinking he's Trump, dancing out there. So the U.S. attacked. Now we have a new de facto leader in Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. Weeks ago, the U.S. had decided, according to officials close to this decision-making in the administration, the Trump administration had decided that Vice President Delcy Rodriguez would be the one we would deal with. She is the chosen one. She's the one we'll talk to. Okay? People involved in the discussions said intermediaries persuaded the administration that she would protect and champion the future of American energy investments in the country. Quote, said one official, "I've been watching her career for a long time, so I have some sense of who she is and what she's about. I'm not claiming that she's a permanent solution to the country's problems, but she's certainly someone we think we can work with at a much more professional level than we were able to with Maduro." Delcy Rodriguez, vice president to an illegitimate president. Wouldn't that make her illegitimate? Delcy Rodriguez. Not Miss Machado. Okay, Maria Corina Machado. You've heard that name getting bounced around, right? She's the woman who organized the presidential campaign for Edmundo Gonzalez successfully in the eyes of the international community and Trump and Biden. Everyone except Maduro agrees that Miss Machado was the leader of, organized a successful winning presidential campaign. Her efforts in Venezuela have earned her the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay? And she saw the writing on the wall. She saw the writing on the wall, and she began to cozy up to Trump immediately. Once she realized what was happening, regime change, she tried to throw her hat in the ring. She did. She has gone out of her way to please Trump. She has called Trump a champion of freedom. She has mimicked his talking points, and she even dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. None of this mattered. None of this mattered because Trump didn't want her. Trump didn't want her. He even said he didn't want her. Listen.
Aware of the location of opposition leader Machado, and have you been in contact with her?
No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
Mr. President,
do you have any hesitations about Machado?
Mr. President, on Monday.
Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect to be the leader.
She doesn't have the support of the people. She doesn't have the respect of the people. Neither of those things are true. From all accounts, her candidate won the popular election, should be president. I don't know any other way more concrete than that to show that she has the support of the Venezuelan people. And as far as respect of the Venezuelan people, you trust Trump to be plugged into how Venezuelans feel? He's got his finger on the pulse of how Venezuelans feel about their leadership, right? Because he knows who they respect and who they don't. He's full of crap. No. He wanted to go with Delcy Rodriguez. Officials say their relationship with Ms. Rodriguez's interim government will be based on her ability to play by their rules. This is what they said, quote. And they reserve the right to take additional military action if she fails to respect America's interests. Even though Ms. Rodriguez has come out right after the attacks and said, hey, by the way, Maduro's still our president, and this is U.S. aggression. We will not be slaves and we will not be a colony. That's what Ms. Rodriguez said out of her own mouth after the attack, after the arrest of Maduro. That is what she said to the Venezuelan people. Here's Scotty's theory, and this makes a whole lot of sense to me. If they have chosen Ms. Rodriguez prior to this attack, it may be a good strategy, right, to say what you have to say to appease and appeal to the Venezuelan people, the patriots, and do what the American government tells you to do. You say what you have to say to keep these people on your side, to keep the optics right. Say whatever you feel you need to say to gain and keep and earn the respect of the Venezuelan people, but you will do what we tell you to do. That makes sense to me. According to Scott's theory, I would go so far as to say if that is true, that her public announcements were crafted by Rubio, by Miller, those close to the decision-making in Venezuela. They may have even crafted her statements. Here's the down and dirty of this. Here's what really sucks about this. Here's the hypocrisy and the opportunism intrinsic in this decision. And please don't let this be lost. When you talk about all the irregularities, all of the violations of international law, the violations of our morality, norms, in the face of all that, do not forget. See this clearly. Trump and Biden have both said that Machado's presidential campaign for Edmundo Gonzalez was the legitimate winner of the Venezuelan presidential election. The whole world agrees that Edmundo Gonzalez, led by Machado, Nobel Prize winning Machado, should be and is the legitimate leader of Venezuela. But that's not who the Trump administration wants to work with. They want to work with Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president of an illegitimate and, in their words, corrupt narco-terrorist dictator. They are choosing the vice president of a corrupt dictator over the architect of an officially recognized winner of the presidential election in Venezuela. Someone who wants to lead, wants Edmundo Gonzalez to lead. The person they all agreed won that election. She's championing him. We don't want to work with that. We don't want to work with the Nobel Prize winner. We don't want to work with the legitimate leader of Venezuela. We want to work with Delcy Rodriguez. That's who the Trump administration wants to work with. 56 years old. She's considered an economic troubleshooter. She led that country's shift from corrupt socialism to corrupt pseudo-capitalism. Okay? This is not a good person. This is a corrupt person who was the right hand of a corrupt dictator. Let's make no mistake. Now, in her role, she was moderately successful, okay? She stabilized the Venezuelan economy as much as she could. She steadily grew Venezuela's oil production, even though the U.S. had tightened sanctions on this country, boarding their ships, sanctioning the ships, carrying their oil to Russia and Iran. Even though the U.S. was breathing down their necks, she was able to stabilize their economy and keep the oil flowing. And guess what? The American government respects that. She's a deal maker, right? She's a deal maker. But make no mistake, while she was stabilizing the economy and keeping the oil flowing in Venezuela, this woman had never denounced the brutal repression and corruption that was the hallmark of the Maduro regime. She influenced it, and she facilitated it and supported it every step of the way. This is the woman we have decided to work with. Not the person, Mr. Gonzalez or Ms. Machado, who the Trump administration themselves have said won the election. It's just in our face. There's no secret coups anymore. No secret destabilization efforts. It's no secret anymore. This is who America is now. We are open for business with anybody. With anybody. The more corrupt, morally defunct you are, the better chance you have to get along with this administration. You want proof? There's your proof. MAGA, please come explain this one to me. Make it make sense. Do the gymnastics. Let me see it. So who's in charge now? Well, to hear Donnie tell it.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
He nailed it the
first
first time.
It has to be judicious.
There you go.
Because that's what we're all about.
I don't know why he stuck on that word. You went 2 for 3 on it, though, Don. I'll give you credit. You went 2 for 3. Delcy Rodriguez, the Venezuelan vice president, now de facto leader. She's running the show. Jorge Rodriguez, he's the president of Venezuela's National Assembly, and he is Delcy's brother. They form a powerful political duo in Venezuela, and their father was a Marxist guerrilla and the co-founder of the Socialist League, which was a leftist movement active in the 1960s and 70s. Their father, Jorge Antonio Rodriguez, was arrested and died under torture from the Venezuelan government. So they have admitted publicly that they are out for revenge. And revenge Delcy took, and her brother. Another key player in what's left, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, the Venezuelan defense minister. He is a 4-star general who has kept the military in line for Maduro. He was the one loyal, high-ranking military official that Maduro knew was not part of any of the coup attempts against him, the one he knew he could trust, and he is the one who has kept things airtight for the Maduro regime in terms of military opposition. Airtight. And he has vast influential power. This is power that the U.S. government is going to have to tiptoe around and cozy up to. He is in control of the ports. He is in control of social programs. He is in control of that country effectively. The strong arm of the Maduro regime. They're going to have to dance and tiptoe around him a little bit. No doubt. No doubt. Who else is going to be important? Marco Rubio. Obviously, Marco Rubio. He is the architect of Trump's policies in Venezuela. Okay? Rubio, quote, "The U.S. has power to ensure Venezuela's leaders do what the U.S. wants. Quote, if they don't make the right decisions, the U.S. will retain multiple levers of leverage to ensure that our interests are protected." He said that on Face the Nation. Not mincing words. Not at all. Who else is going to be running the show over there? Well, no doubt, Mike Wirth, CEO of Chevron. He's going to be calling a lot of economic shots. He's going to be leading the negotiations on percentages now going forward. Oh, things are going to change. And Mike Wirth, he was the one who stuck around. Chevron was the one who stuck around after Chavez. Chevron was the one to take the hit on profits to ensure that U.S. oil interests maintain in Venezuela while stiff-arming China's interests. The last champion. Well, he's now having his day. He is going to be wildly influential on what happens with Venezuela's oil interests going forward. Okay? He said, quote, "We play the long game. We are committed to the people of the country and would like to be there as a part of rebuilding Venezuela's economy in time when circumstances change." Okay. And then you've got Marina Machado. What about her? Okay. Just know, yes, she wanted to be in this position that Delsey's in, and Trump stiff-armed her. Wasn't the right person. No respect, no power. She has gone silent. She has gone silent. Trump called her a very nice woman, but one that doesn't have the support to lead her country. Since then, she has gone absolutely silent, and I'll tell you why. She is waiting. She's waiting to see if Delsey screws this up in any way, because if she does, she knows, Miss Machado does, she knows that she is seen as a Trump-friendly entity that may be fit to run this country, with U.S. interests at heart, of course. If Delsey doesn't work out, Miss Machado could fill the void. She's waiting. She's gone silent. No more talking out of her. Biding her time. Edmundo Gonzalez, the presidential candidate who everybody agrees won, the person that Miss Machado chose and propelled to a victory in the eyes of Trump administration, Biden, and everybody else. Edmundo says, "I'm the leader of Venezuela." Okay, he's not quite as silent as Miss Machado. He says, "Boom, I'm the leader of Venezuela. Let's get this party started." Well, that's not how the U.S. government sees it. Not anymore. That's how they saw it just months ago, but that's not how they see it now. No, no, no. Who's calling the shots? I mentioned all these people. I mentioned the key players. You heard what Donnie said. We're running the show now. But who is going to effectively call the shots in Venezuela? I'm going to tell you. Now, Rubio, this has been his baby. And of course, he will be influential. But don't forget, Rubio's our Secretary of State and our National Security Advisor. He's going to be spread pretty thin. So thin that he's really not going to be able to be there for the day-to-day running of Venezuela. Okay? Trump has trusted just a small cadre of people on all the most important decisions concerning foreign policy because he has completely dismantled the foreign policy infrastructure in this country. I told you what he did to the National Security Council. Totally dismantled it. No head of the National Security Council as we speak now. That void has not even been filled. He only trusts a handful of people with foreign policy. So, that being said, it looks like, oh, Lord, help the people of Venezuela. It looks like Stephen Miller is going to be running Venezuela. They are going to, it seems, officially elevate him to the role overseeing post-Maduro operations in Venezuela, according to one person with knowledge of the conversation, who, like everybody else, had to speak on the condition of anonymity, of course. It's going to be Stephen Miller. Nobody hates brown people more than Stephen Miller. What a joke. What a sick, macabre, perverted joke about to be played on the Venezuelan people. Stephen Miller is going to be running your country now. It's going to be Stephen Miller. It's going to be Chevron CEO Mike Wirth. They're going to be calling the shots in your country now, Venezuela. It's like Hitler appointing Goering the overseer of Israel. Stephen Miller's show now. He's going to be calling the shots in Venezuela for the time being. Delcy Rodriguez, the illegitimate vice president of a corrupt and brutal leader, is going to be the de facto president. And the oil is going to flow and flow and flow. You're going to be seeing licenses being handed out to American oil companies. Those rigs are still there. The ones they abandoned during the Chavez regime, just got to spruce those up a little bit. You're going to see American expatriates flood Venezuela once again. And you're going to see oil leave the coast of Venezuela once again. This blockade, it's going to be short-lived. Once they get their ducks in a row and they get Delcy in line and Mike Wirth has a chance to sink his teeth into it, the oil will flow. Not on those sanctioned ships, of course, that 1,000 shadow fleet, 1,000 ships that has been moving oil to China, Russia, Iran. Not them. Legitimate ships will be carrying the oil, and it will flow. And Mexico, and Cuba, and Colombia, and potentially anybody else in South America, you're on the menu. It's time for the Don Road Doctrine to take effect. Europe, you're on your own. Not our problem. You handle that little Russia-Ukraine affair. South America, you're in the crosshairs. I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining me.